Hello everybody! Sorry for not uploading in so long and that this isn't Osu content. I remember making a poll on this super long time ago and never getting around to do it, so yeah. In today's video, we'll be looking at the worst anime of 2017 and maybe of all time, but that's to me. I've never seen an anime so bad. Maybe the only redeeming factor is that it's 1. Not boring, and 2. The pacing is somewhat consistent. I've never seen anyone review this anime before, and I've never seen it appear on top 10 worst anime 2017 lists, so yep. Disclaimer: this video will spoil the first half of the anime. Click away if you don't want spoilers. But hey, let's be real, you just want to see trash burn. The anime itself covers extremely difficult subjects, such as physical abuse, extreme violence, PTSD, sexual abuse, and even rape. This video falls under fair use. It is criticism, or it's a review. Please support the original creators. But why? Also, I'm only reviewing the anime. I'm not going to look at the original manhwa. If you're unable to stomach triggering content, please stop watching this video. Alright, so basically we'll be looking at this Chinese anime called Evil or Alive. It was aired on Japan television in late 2017. The basic plot is about a teen named Hibiki being sent to an internet addiction rehab school. It's based off a real school in China, so the school is a military school, and the instructors regularly physically abuse the students. This anime has so many bad points, I think it's best if we split it by episodes. Episode 1! We get an introduction to our beloved main character, Hibiki. The very first time we see him, he's at an internet cafe playing games. He's supposedly addicted to the internet, and this is the show's way of showing it to us. But the thing is, for the rest of the show, we don't even see any sort of withdrawal or any kind of internet addicted symptoms from him at all. In fact, all we see is this. I get the feeling that the people behind the anime have no idea what internet addiction looks like, because apparently it includes being an asshole to your mother, screaming at games in an internet cafe, and this. In fact, none of the characters in the entire anime show any sign of internet addiction. Another thing is that the show has pretty terrible animation. Lazy animation actually. And a ton of composition errors. For example, where's his mouse? How is he shooting? There's a sign that says 18 plus only. How old is Hibiki?
17歳.
Okay, maybe this is an elaborate way to show that he's so addicted that he'd fake an ID into this place. But nope. Right after that cut, you see this. If you look closely in this shot, you'll see that they are as tall as the building. How long is his leg? And many more. Okay, that aside, our main character then blacks out Danganronpa style and ends up in his very new school. And his first reaction is just this. By the way, the color choices for the scene is really bad. Why did they think this was a good idea? After we're introduced to the bad guys, which is the instructors and the headmistress of the school, whose character design is... This kid is probably the most internet addicted character in the entire anime, to be honest. After the instructors beat up some kid, Hibiki finds himself beaten up for checking out the headmistress. So less than 10 minutes into the anime, we see that Hibiki is delusional, annoying, a pervert, and a pussy. To be honest, every character in the show is extremely one-dimensional, and I guess they all have some sort of motivation, but if you look further into any reasons of their motivations, it just falls apart. Also, for the first episode, there are these weird monogatari tier visuals here and there. Probably to enhance the edgy mood. It's pretty annoying to me because I feel like it's not justified really. It makes it overly edgy. Also, at the start of the episode, they used real life footages because they wanted to be edgy and save a lot on animation cash. After that, we're introduced to another character, Shin. He's basically the mysterious OP character in any cliché anime. He's probably the most dislikable character in the entire anime, maybe tied with Hibiki. Alright, so he's looking at personal info on the students. How does he have them? It's a mystery. He looks at Hibiki's info and is like, why? Cause Hibiki's mom sent him here. Yep, cause his mom sent him here by force. Isn't it kinda normal? I don't think this guy wanted to enroll in this place either. After coming up to the surface level and seeing how cruel the academy is, Hibiki ends up pussying out and running to the rooftop. But he's still too pussy to pull an end hero on Xian. Shin confronts Hibiki and torments him here. Somehow, things lead to Shin wanting to make Hibiki a man? But why? Also, we get this seriously painful scene.
あんたが女の子だったなんて。ただ胸がちょっと小さすぎるよ。発育が良くないんだな。でも胸にこだわらないし、よくわかんないけどブラをつけた方がいいんじゃないかな。男なら男だって早く言ってくれよ。いきなり男にしてやるなんて言うから。おい、ちょっと待って、こっちに来るな。男に興味はない。僕の低層を男になんか渡すもんか。
これ以上くだらんことを言ってみろ。
It's pretty damn mood-breaking if you ask me. It happens a hell lot in this show and is even used as a secret way to get out of tough situations the plot sets itself up to. One example is this later on in the show. Xian is supposed to be wary of Hibiki in the scene, but they use this comedy skit to skip that hurdle so the show doesn't deal with that.
ましたが、まだまだ足りません。これからは総教官の教えを心に刻み、クラスメートを自分の兄弟だと思って接します。入校したばかりで何もわかりませんでしたが、もう一度チャンスをください。よく恥ずかしげもなくあんなことが言えるよ。
響、よく言った。反省したんだな。感動したぞ。今後もこの調子で訓練に励め。
こんなのありか。総教官騙されてるぞ。
我々の苦労を理解できれば、ここでの毎日はきっと有意義で充実したものになるはずだ。お前を信じていたぞ。
ありがとうございます。
Shin tells Hibiki to pick a target, to make him a man that is, which he looks at Shiori, someone he knew in middle school. But apparently she's now here and is also the student council president, despite not seeming like she would be internet addicted at all. Which, spoiler alert, she isn't an internet addict. After that, for some reason, Shin declares Hibiki his dog. Basically, Hibiki's life belongs to him now. But why? Hibiki is such a normal guy, to be honest. And apparently there's a huge number of ups in being Shin's dog. Basically, you're untouchable to the instructors and you get good food. After the declaration and some minor stuff like Shin showing Hibiki to Xian and telling him he's now his dog, episode end. Episode 2! This entire episode is basically establishing the culture in the school. Students have some sort of hierarchy going on. They're pretty ruthless and things like molestation is completely A-okay, if you're finding mobile phones that is. So this guy, Wudo, is the disciplinary officer. How did Shin know the girl had the phone before snitching on her to Wudo? It's a mystery. After this girl, Jun, is harassed by Wudo, Shiori steps in and saves her. It's not too bad, but what really makes this scene is this gem. Jesus, their action scenes are horrifying. Shiori carries a penknife wherever she goes and it's her weapon, while everyone else here uses their fists. Why are weapons even allowed? How about the other students? Can't they all just start using weapons too? But nope, we never see anyone else using anything other than Shiori. And we also don't know if it's allowed or not. What are the school rules here anyways? The show does a pretty poor job at establishing it. I'm still not sure if there's any rules, or if it's just no rules except listening to the instructors and not using phones or computers. After that fight, Shiori tends to Hibiki's wounds. Hibiki's a pervert. Shiori demands the phone from Jun because she saved her, which she refuses. And by then, Shin steps in and introduces his proposal. Basically, the entire thing is, do it with Hibiki or don't get a phone. And Shiori ends up being forced to do that stuff. I guess this scene was supposed to show how ruthless the student culture is, but to be honest, all it does is make Shin look like an asshole. Hibiki is pretty much enjoying it the entire way through. It seriously makes him even less likable than before, because he's supposed to be a super justice guy in the entire show, and his entire character motivation is to be a good guy to Shiori. But he will still enjoy this because he's that much of a pervert. even if the girl is forced into it. The only thing that stops him is Shiori vomiting when she kissed him. But it's still totally a-okay if she's forced into it, as long as she doesn't act like it. Am I right, Hibiki? Episode end. Episode 3! The episode continues with Shiori still trying to force herself, except the vomiting and her physical sick response is played off as a joke, which is really gross. Like, this is such a bad thing, and it's played off as a joke. And it's also a really big plot point later on, so why is it a joke? This is really disgusting on the show's part. Hibiki ends up doing everything himself then forcing Shiori. After that, he tries lecturing Shin about using women as objects, but what a hypocrite. After that, he tells Shin he no longer wants to be his dog. Cool. Then Hibiki meets his new roommates. They ask him for food and he comes back with it, but they're upset because he brings shitty food instead of whatever Shin is eating. Why did they expect him to bring nice food back? Because they know that he's Shin's dog. How did they know this? How does everyone know of it now even though it's only been a day in universe? It's a mystery. And then we get this absolutely amazing scene.
おい、なんで向かっていかずに指だけ動かしてんだよ。くそ、キーボードを操作する癖が出た。こうなったらみんなで一気にかかれ。誰も動かないのかよ。お前から行けよ。俺はずっとサポート役だったんだ。俺遠距離タイプ。嘘だろ。俺は回復タイプだったんだ。
どうなってんだ。手を伸ばして受け止めただけなのに。まさか超能力を手に入れたのか。さあ目覚めるんだ、響。この壁を壊してしおりのことを救い出すんだ。超能力も目覚めたんじゃないのか。
I really hate the comedy bits in this anime. They go for military training after that. Episode end. Episode 4! Episode starts with military training. Hibiki's roommates collapse because they're so malnourished. Shian goes over and almost beats them up. But Hibiki, being all justice, goes over and defends them, which basically ends up with him being beaten up. He continuously tries to argue against the system, but obviously that doesn't go well. Shiori tries to rescue him by proxy, by beating it up first so that Shian doesn't need to, but despite Shiori trying to help him, he's an idiot and keeps going on about his own shit. I think at this point any viewer would just seriously hate his guts. They get into an argument and Hibiki accidentally knocks out the phone out of Shiori's pocket. Suddenly two girls mystically end up by her side and hold her down. Normally wouldn't this scene be more like everyone staring at the phone on the floor in absolute shock before anyone can react? Shian orders all the instructors to beat all the students until Hibiki apologizes, which he does. Everybody hates his guts.
僕は一体何をしてるんだ。正義の味方を気取って。くそ。なぜこんなことになるんだよ。
Wow, I wonder how you only realized that now. Shin goes over and mocks him. Hibiki begs him to be his dog again, but actually, why? So far we haven't really seen any upsides to being his dog other than decent food and maybe more tolerance from the instructors. In fact, Hibiki hasn't really experienced any of the upsides properly. So why? What does Hibiki want? He gets turned down because having him back would ruin Shin's reputation. And according to Shin, but what did he even see in Hibiki anyways? He can't stand up for himself, he's weak and pretty stupid, but he's special because his mom sent him here? Shin gives him 3 conditions before he'll reconsider letting him be his dog again.
1つ、自分のクラスのリーダーになる。2つ、ウドを風紀委員長の座から引きずり下ろす。
そんな。
3つ。
So the last one is a mystery? Why? Cause plot. If I'm not wrong, we never find out what the last reason is either actually. Then we get this scene from the dorms. Hibiki comes in with the cringiest entrance ever and declares himself the class leader. They laugh at him, but Hibiki throws food at them in response. How did they react? With this.
リーダーずっとついてきます。お願いします。リーダー、響様。生きててよかった。リーダーです。
First off, why did they play this off as a joke? Is it because dealing with the problem of untrusting roommates for what happened an hour ago too difficult? Probably. So the anime had to resort to a cheap comedy skit to cover up and solve that issue. It's so cheap. Jesus. Second off, where the hell did Hibiki get those? Shin's not helping him anymore, so how does this make any sense at all? After that, Hibiki challenges Wudo. They're supposed to fight, but Hibiki basically challenges them to who runs the longest. This is pretty smart from Hibiki's part because he's playing on his strengths. He used to be in track and field in middle school, so yeah. But you never see the thought process of this at all. It just is. Hibiki just never goes through any difficult mental hardship that isn't being beaten up from the previous scene. He never reaches any sort of hard logical conclusion with his deluded brain. And we still have no idea why he wants to be Shin's dog. So apparently this giant plan was from Shin giving Hibiki advice. Isn't Hibiki supposed to do this himself? Why is Shin spoon-feeding him so much? This is the kind of dog Shin wants? Can't he have anyone better like, I don't know, Wudo, Shiori? Episode end. Episode 5! Episode continues with the running. Hibiki and Wudo runs into the dorms. Turns out it's 9 PM, curfew time. The rest of Wudo's lackeys are locked out because they didn't make it in time. The timing stuff was all planned by Hibiki. And then we get the cringiest monologue ever.
弱い者をいじめてた学校の支配者が今は地面に這いつくばって豚のように泣きわめいている面白いこれは面白いなこれが正義を成し遂げた快感ってやつなのかとんでもなく気持ちいいな待ってろよ今まで僕をいじめてきた奴ら全員に絶対復讐してやる
And then we get Shin acting like some mastermind when this entire plan doesn't make any sense. Hibiki outed all of Wudo's gang to Xian. Xian beats Wudo up and praises Hibiki. After that, the scene changes to parents re-enrolling their weakling son into the school. After they leave, Xian admits to the headmistress that he messed up and she basically goes BDSM on him. Scene changes to Wudo begging evil One Punch Man to help him. Ryo doesn't want to help him and demands to know where Jun's phone is. Because turns out, Ryo is helping Jun or something. Wudo tells him that it's with Xian, and then he gets beaten to death. Cool. Ryo walks away thinking it's all Xian's doing, because the phone he got from him earlier before was a fake. We get back to Shin and Hibiki in Shin's room. There's even a computer in here. Shin tells Hibiki that the fight against Wudo was a test or a way to teach him about the school's rules. Hibiki asks all the right questions, but the entire scene is just played off as a joke. The show really does play important plot points or questions as nothing but comedy. Jesus. Shin explains that there's an underground trade going on within the school. Instructors and students smuggle phones for money. Also, this conversation flows kinda bad.
ないだろう。ウードはそんな学生の一人に過ぎないんだ。
僕はなんてことをしてしまったんだ。
なんだよ今更。
Most of Hibiki's interactions with Shin seem pretty off or weirdly forced. He tells Hibiki to find every student with a phone and report them. Basically, he wants Hibiki to take over the school. Hibiki tells his classmates that they're going to take on Class 6, but they're not interested and start bringing up things that they should have brought up in the first place, like when Hibiki declared to be their class leader. Seriously? He also convinced them with good food. Was that a one-time thing or is it constant? If it's constant, he can just take the food privileges away because they're not listening. Scene changes to Shiori getting flashbacks about her younger brother in the hospital. And then two extremely confident characters show up and they start fighting? They introduce themselves. Akane and her little sister Huko. Also, did she just grow taller? I don't even want to get started on how bad the fight scene is. Akane asks Shiori to join them, but Shiori isn't interested. Episode end. Episode 6. Episode continues with Akane convincing Shiori. Apparently, Akane is some super tech expert hacker. The show pretty much added her in because they needed someone who could deal with hacking to solve problems. Because a random internet addict being a supreme hacker is super believable, am I right? And apparently, Akane hacked the police data systems too to find out about Shiori? In real life, you need a team of professionals to do it. Jesus Christ. Shiori demands for a phone first, and Akane pulls this thing out. Apparently, Akane is such a genius tech expert that she made this phone tracker GPS device that can tell you the locations of all existing phones in the area. They set out to find themselves a phone, even though they're technically holding one too. And then we're back with Hibiki, who's confronting people from another class. He pulls some other dirty trick out and basically frames them for possessing phones, and beating him up for trying to rat them out. Xian takes their leader away and bans the lackeys from eating for the rest of the day. Hibiki then invites them to join him, and if they do, they get to eat good food. And again, I still have no idea where he's getting all the good food from. After that happens, Hibiki is confronted by Shiori and gang because Hibiki has a phone on him. It's a serious scene because it's the first time Shiori is seeing him since Xian beat him up. And then the directors thought it was a great idea to break the mood with this amazing gag.
響超イケメンじゃないの私の理想のタイプだわ
誰だよやめろ近寄るんじゃない
私がハグしてあげる
何してんだよ離れろ
ここで会ったのはきっと運命ねダーリン私を抱きしめて
Shiori and gang demands a phone, and I have no idea why in the entire scene, Hibiki just doesn't hand it over. His entire character motivation is to be a good guy to Shiori, and even in this scene earlier, with Shin, Hibiki says himself that he wants to give a phone to Shiori. But nope, it just doesn't happen here because plot. Shin pops into the scene and Shiori is mad at him because the phone he gave her had no signal. Shin explains that the school blocks radio waves, so all the phones can't reach the internet or use cellular services. Why is this conversation even happening? Akane herself said that she found a way to give phones signals. She knows this. She should also know about the signal blocking and told it to Shiori earlier. Shin offers Shiori and gang to join his gang, but they get offended and want to fight him for some reason. I have no idea how people in this academy can't just refuse a gang offer and be on their way. Why are they always fighting? Are they stupid? They chase Shin and Hibiki into the male toilet and get water hosed and beaten up. We get introduced to Shin's new gang members, Yo, the leader of class 6, and Ban, the leader of class 20. Hibiki is confused because he was supposed to take out Yo, but Shin explains that he allied with him instead, but he scolds Hibiki for abandoning his task? But why? It's over? And even if Hibiki didn't know that, barely any time has passed since Shin gave him the mission, and Shin clearly knows Hibiki was ambushed by Shiori earlier because he was right there to see it. Shin gives Hibiki one last chance to make it up to him, which is basically to strip Shiori and Hoku and take pictures. I don't really get what's the point of all this. Shin gets nothing out of this. I guess all he's done so far is to make himself look like an asshole, and maybe he's doing this because he wants to bully Hibiki. But to me, whatever he's doing feels so unjustified and for absolutely no reason, even with his backstory included. And don't forget, we're supposed to like this character at the end of the anime. Hibiki, of course, refuses to do it. Shin gets upset and calls him out for not doing it with Shiori in episode 2. And apparently he knows this because...
しおりがお前の女になったって言うなら今みたいな態度は取らないはずだそんなこともわからないとはお前ってやつは本当に救いようのないバカだあんた
Which in my opinion is pretty bullshit. Shiori wouldn't act more soft towards a guy after being forced into it, and we find out Shiori's backstory later which disproves this even more. And Shin supposedly also has private information on all the students. Shouldn't he know this then and not make that dumb flaw in logic? Jesus Christ. Shin gives him another final chance, and Hibiki just says,
じゃあ1枚だけそれでいいか
Episode end. Alright, I'll talk about episode 7 to 12 in part 2 of this mini-series. This video has gotten pretty long, and if you made it this far, congratulations! 2 different people I've asked to watch the show with me on 2 separate occasions for this review dropped it at the 3rd episode. So far, from episode 1 to 6, the show is extremely inconsistent in its logic and the writer doesn't know what they're doing. The premise is very interesting, but it has problems that is extremely difficult to deal with realistically, and because of that, they end up writing flaky or stupid things to get the plot moving in whatever direction they want it to. The one-dimensional characters don't really help the situation either. The entire thing plays out like some weird, edgy fantasy so far. And if you think this is pretty bad, no worries, it gets worse in the rest of the episodes. Tune in next week! If you enjoy these kinds of videos, let me know in the comments. And if you don't enjoy it, let me know too. Also, if you know an anime even worse than this, please tell me because I want to know what can get worse than this. But well, thanks for watching guys!